Hello, 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 and welcome back to DLA Alternative. It's your boy Brandon, and I hope everyone is doing phenomenal as always. And thank you as always to everyone who keeps subscribing, liking, and following this journey with us. And yes, real quickly, you're probably going to see this pen in my hand because I need something to hold on to. I'm not used to not having those little shitty mics anymore because we got this new amazing mic, so I hope it sounds amazing for all of you guys. But more importantly, yes, you guys have been waiting for this video, and I know it's been a little longer than expected, but as I was analyzing this season 5 trailer, people, you have no idea how much this brain blasted me, okay? As I started looking at every single scene, there's like something close to like maybe 60 different shots in this whole entire trailer. When I was analyzing last week, okay, when I was gonna try and get this video ready for this weekend, for last weekend or for last Friday, whichever day I was trying to get it out for, and when I started analyzing this, people, okay, as I started analyzing this last week, that I started realizing how long this was taking me because it's only like a 2.5 minute trailer. I was literally sitting here for almost 4 hours trying to figure out what to even discuss about all of this because I'm finding connections as I'm looking at all of this stuff over and over. So what we're gonna do in this one, okay, how we're gonna break this trailer down is we're gonna go scene by scene and we're gonna analyze what we're actually seeing in this trailer. And the reason being for that specifically is because what we hear in trailers, okay, for any type of trailer you ever see, it doesn't have to be Stranger Things, but when you hear in trailers, okay, the commentary or the narration, all right, that does not necessarily line up directly with what we see in this trailer. So what we're gonna do is, like I said, we're gonna analyze the scenes. We're not gonna analyze what we're hearing, okay? Yeah, I know, like Mike says, they're talking about a burn. I know there's a lot of other things going on. There's a lot of specific characters that speak throughout this trailer. The only thing about that is we don't know what these match up to and what these lines match up to, okay? So what we're gonna do is a second video after this. And I wanna know specifically what clips you guys wanna cover, and we're gonna call this a trailer breakdown closer look, and that's gonna be the next video, or at least one of the next videos, because I got a lot of theories I wanna get out as well. But in that one, we're gonna take a closer look at when we hear those words being spoken and what scenes we see during all of that specifically, and only those scenes. And we're gonna try and compare and see what we're seeing that way. So like I said, I hope you guys like this one. Let's get started on this. We got a lot to analyze, people, so let's get ready. I hope you guys like this one. All right, so the very first one we got to analyze is the very first scene, is Steve with that wheel turn. That's our intro to this trailer. Basically in this scene, okay, right off the bat, we see maybe what Steve is going to be doing in this season, okay, that he's going to be in control of this van and maybe controlling this, whatever he's doing right here, okay, and as we see in the next scene, he's controlling a satellite. And what I want to talk about is a lot of symbolism going on in here, okay? So what Steve is doing, he's turning this wheel, but he's turning it counterclockwise. So in my opinion, that might have some importance because as we clip back to what he's actually doing, we see this radio, okay? We see this ham check looking radio, okay? That reminds me so much of Mr. Clark's radio, all right? But what he's doing, if we think about symbolism, is he's rotating that wheel backwards, counterclockwise, and that dial on the radio is going upwards, and we see that throughout this whole entire trailer. We end up seeing it get to that 100 mark, okay, because we're not going to really talk about that radio specifically. We might do that in the closer look. So if we think about this a little bit symbolically, maybe we're going to be looking back, okay, rotating back to things that we have seen already in order to move forward or to excel, like that radio is going up. So with that being said, let's get to our next scene. The next scene we see is very important in my opinion, and you got to pay attention, all right? What we see is we see Steve leaving that radio station now after we just saw him doing that stuff, and Lucas and Mike are following him on bikes. And what's exciting about this is we're seeing what this radio station is finally going to look like on camera, specifically in this show, which is very exciting to me. I've been looking very forward to seeing what we're going to see involving this radio station. The WSQK radio station, which no doubt in my mind they're going to be dropping some merch for after this season or during this season. I want to get myself some of that. Also, with that being said, we're going to do a little box opening of some stuff that I got from a while back that I completely forgot that I had and I wanted to do a video on. So we're going to do that in a video coming up. It's kind of just going to be a little stupid video, but it's kind of cool, some of the stuff that we got. But more importantly, what you got to realize in this scene right here, okay, is we see Steve leaving in that van after doing all of this and connecting probably to that radio station, okay? We don't know that for sure, But Lucas and Mike are leaving on bikes, so obviously, in my opinion, they are not going to the same place in this plan or whatever they are about to be doing here. Obviously, it looks like they're kind of in the process of like commencing a plan or doing something, all right? But realistically, he's in a car and they're on bikes. They're not going to be able to keep up with each other unless we see that they're doing this specifically, but no doubt in my mind, they're probably going to different places. So does that mean that our group is going to be splitting up like we kind of see in this trailer, that they're going to be splitting up into different groups to try and handle different points of things that are going on? Who actually knows? So let me know your thoughts, but let's get to the next clip. So these next few clips are actually inside of this radio station from what we're assuming, okay? We actually do not know that this is the inside of the radio station just yet, so just keep that in mind, that this could be a trick. I assume that it is. But if we really think about it, we see the inside of this building, we see the outside of the building, but we do not know if they are the same building. Just remember that. I've thought a lot about that recently, and I'm like, wait a minute, what if we're being thrown off here? But in my opinion, I really do think like this is going to be the inside of the radio station, so whatever. But my point is this is where we're getting actual scenes and actual video footage, not just behind the scenes photos of inside this radio station. So with this, you got to see the reactions, and this is why we're not viewing the words just yet, because this specifically is why I wanted to do this separate. Because as we see our characters in the scene, they kind of change as we see them. So no doubt in my mind, we're seeing clips from different points in time, maybe involving this scenario of what we're doing. So basically, the first clip we see is of Will, Elle, Robin, and Nancy, and they are just like kind of looking down. They're sitting on a couch like they're waiting for something, or like they're upset about something. And then we get a shot of Joyce, okay, and she's looking like she just heard something she did not want to hear, like they're listening in on something, like she's kind of looking hopeful, but she's kind of looking nervous or like kind of shocked. So I want to know your thoughts about what you guys think like Joyce is listening to here, okay? But then this is what I mean, how their demeanor kind of changes, because we get a quick shot of Nancy and Robin, and Nancy does this look and kind of looks at Robin like they're shocked, like something good happened. If you really look at how they look, she looks like way different than they were just looking like nervous on the couch. But like I said, all of a sudden this changes, because all of a sudden we see Will and Elle, and Will is looking down and looking lost, and he's kind of got this red glow on his face, so just keep that in mind. I don't know if that matters, but if you think about it, kind of look at Elle, all right? She kind of gives him this look and he looks back, but she kind of gives him this look like she's nervous to speak to him, okay? So I don't know if I'm on point with that, but it kind of gives me this vibe that Elle is a little bit nervous to speak to Will about whatever might be happening in this scene, because he kind of gives her a look, but she kind of looks up a little bit hesitant, because he's kind of just looking lost, he's looking straight, and he's just like looking out of it. But let's get to the next scene. Let's keep going. So this next scene, people, this next scene I absolutely love. And this is the scene with Lucas and his binoculars, all right? And he's counting down with his hands. But in this show, I've started to realize, I'm trying to figure out a way to do a theory about it. But in this show, I'm starting to realize every single character has a repeat scene, if that makes sense. Where basically we see them in almost every single season doing something specific. It might not be the exact same scenario or same exact thing, but their demeanor and kind of what they end up doing within that scenario is the same. And this is Lucas's, okay, the lookout scene. He's like the lookout for specific things. And basically what I mean by that, because in season 1, him and Mike get in that argument, he ends up going and looking out at Hawkins' lab on his own, and he ends up seeing those the military trucks, and he ends up seeing the power company leaving, okay, Hawkins' lab. But in season 2, this is the one I want to compare, okay, because this one looks more like that to me, because it's kind of dark and all that. But in season 2, okay, this is a very interesting scene, is when they are in the junkyard, okay, and Lucas is on top of the bus looking out for the Demodogs. What happens in this scene, okay, because this might be something we will see in season 5, because this could possibly be one of Lucas's happiest memories. And yes, that sounds crazy, but think about it, people. What else happens in this scene other than looking out for Demodogs and Steve almost dying and all of them almost dying specifically? But Max ends up coming up on top of that bus, and this is the first time we see Max open up to Lucas, and they have that conversation where they really connect. And Lucas ends up telling Max that he really likes hanging out with her. And that's kind of, in my opinion, when Lucas really fell for Max. So, no doubt in my mind, this is one of Lucas's repeat scenes where we see him looking out and he's the one with his binoculars most of the time, like doing this shit. But no doubt in my mind, before those Demodogs ended up coming and almost killing them all, that could have been one of Lucas's happiest memories with Max, because that could have been when he fell for her. So just let me know your thoughts. And bada bada boom, let's get to the next scene. So this next scene is interesting, okay? And if you watch my trailer reaction, I was almost silent all the way leading up to this, and then all of a sudden, we see these flashes of these kids in bunkers, okay? And it blew my mind, okay? Because the very first thing I noticed is that it's all children, except if you really look at this one when we see the boy, the second scene. If you look in the background, that kind of looks like there's one single adult in the background. I do not know that, don't mark my words, but in the scene with the girl, it looks like all children in a bunker, and we do not know what this location is. Some people think it kind of could be like somewhere in the school. In my opinion, I really think this is close to the city center or somewhere where the military is keeping people safe, or at least we think they're keeping them safe, or at least they might think that they're doing something to help them, but realistically they're probably really close to something they're not supposed to be. And more specifically, if we know that the city center has kind of a military base in it, and we know that we see that these children, it's filled with children, okay, and no adults, like I said. But with that being said, at the end of season 4, we see that Hawkins had a lot of damage from an earthquake, supposedly, all right? And we don't know a lot about what happened. We just know a lot of people went missing. So, do you guys think that these children, maybe their parents ended up like dying or something at the end of season 4 due to what happened with the big crack? Realistically, meaning that these kids probably don't have parents anymore and they are orphans. And I know that kind of sounds a little bit morbid, but this show took a crazy turn in season 4, no doubt in my mind, when we talk about the term morbid. So let me know your thoughts. Let's keep going. Next clip. This next clip, okay, if you're not listening really closely, it was really hard for me to hear, and I really had to pause it and listen closely a few times. Maybe that's just me, but whatever, okay? But because this next clip is of Hopper. Basically, we see him kind of looking and waiting for something, all right? And he does not look like he's injured at all yet, so keep that in mind. He kind of looks like he's like fresh. And what I mean by fresh, I mean like he doesn't look like we see later in this trailer, and well, I'll mention that, all right? But what we hear him say, all right, is come on, like he's waiting for something, or waiting for something to maybe trap something. And as we know, we have a season 3 episode, so that's earlier on in the season, maybe before Hopper gets like all messed up and we see him a little more dirty or injured, okay? But chapter 3 in our new season is going to be called The Turnbow Trap, so maybe this has something to do with this, and there's something I have to hint at later, and someone's getting a shout out, no doubt in my mind, so just stay tuned. Because after we get past that Hopper scene, or wait, we get another scene inside of this radio station from what we think, okay, and it's of Will, Elle, Nancy, and Robin again, and what are they doing? They look scared, and they're looking up at the lights. They're looking like something is going wrong. And if we pay attention to what we just saw with the children, other than that it's just children in a bunker, okay, what are they doing as well? They're also looking up at those lights blinking like something wrong is about to happen. So realistically, in my opinion, we kind of look like they're waiting for something in those earlier scenes, but when and then it kind of looks like they're nervous at some points, or like the Will's lost, but then all of a sudden we see this scene of these children also getting these lights, and now we see them getting these lights. So something is happening in Hawkins, or something is coming, and no doubt in my mind that is probably very obvious, but the point is maybe this is all, something is coming everywhere, okay, where it's affecting all of the lights in Hawkins, and something big is coming that everyone knows it's coming this time. Not just our group that we've seen for 4 seasons, okay? The entire town knows something is coming at this moment in time. And let's keep going. Bada bada boom. This next clip, people, is very important. Okay, this is the Will neck grab, which we have seen throughout the show. This is the only time we see it in this trailer, all right? But if you're paying attention to more than just the neck grab here, people, okay, what do we see? We see that there is a building behind there, and we see some children walking behind Will. It looks like 2 girls. But no doubt in my mind, those kids are younger than Will. So do you guys think that this is the middle school? And there's something that kind of proves that we are going to be seeing the middle school. We're going to talk about in another video, okay, involving some photos, all right, that was posted by Stranger Things. But do you guys think we are going to be revisiting the middle school where Will, okay, specifically when we see him start getting that in season 2, where do we see Will get infiltrated by the Mind Flayer that connects to this, all right? We see it at the middle school in the field. So, do you guys think we're going to be seeing Will go back to that field for the first time ever since he was infiltrated by the Mind Flayer? Or do you guys think that this field is going to have some significance in this season? Because as we get to our next clip, people, okay, this next clip is very important too, and there's something I noticed, all right, that was pretty much blew my mind. But I'm not going to lie, after really looking at this scene, I think this might be like a really, really close intro scene to the season. Like more specifically, like one of the very first scenes that we are going to be seeing of like our group going into Hawkins or maybe downtown Hawkins for the first time. But as we see this scene, okay, we see a military truck going down the road, leaving from what it looks like from Hawkins, and we see these helicopters in the sky going towards something, okay, going the opposite direction. Well, we get some characters in this scene too, okay, and that is Mike, Will, and little Miss Holly Wheeler, people, and that's kind of why I'm thinking this is very, very early on in the season. In my opinion, this kind of looks like an intro scene, like when we see them riding it, like maybe they're on their way back home, or they have to go back through the city a certain way. For all we know, maybe they have to check in with the military before they start walking or going through this town. Who actually knows? Or from what it looks like, the center city of Hawkins or whatever, it really looks barricaded, and that's the next scene we see. Okay, we see kind of a small overview of Hawkins, and then all of a sudden it clips and it shows us this gate in the middle of Hawkins that is connected to that library. And as we know in season 4, people, okay, in season 4, at the end of season 4, that is where those 4 gates met, or those 4 cracks, if you want to call them. They met specifically right at that library. No doubt in my mind, this library is going to have major significance other than this gate. And this is going to be my initial thought. Based off of what we're seeing here, we see military guarding just a gate, but they're also guarding the center of this city. So, do you guys think this resembles a little bit of something that we have seen in the show from season 1, and it's a very, very famous location being Hawkins' lab? We know at the end of season 2 that Hawkins' lab ends up closing, okay? We know that nobody is there anymore, and we know that Owens shows up at the very end of season 3 just seeing the damage of Starcourt Mall. But realistically, we have not revisited Hawkins' lab a whole lot since season 2, okay? So that's very important, and we know we're going to revisit that throughout this, from what we see throughout this trailer. But my initial thought when seeing this and thinking about all of that, okay, is that this could be what the military are guarding more than just that gate. Do you guys think that this is where Hawkins' lab possibly, or some sort of lab, maybe a military-based lab now, do you guys think that this is where it is going to be located now, near this gate, trying to figure out how to close it? And that is truly what the military are guarding, is that maybe some scientist or the military scientist trying to figure out how to burn and close this gate. But that's just my initial thought. Let's keep going, people. Because this next scene, I'm not going to hint too much at it, people, but whoever the hell did this to Eddie's grave, go get your face eaten by goddamn Demogorgon. You do not mess with our boy Eddie, or especially our boy Dustin, who is hurting, people. Okay, we see that he's going to be hurting throughout this season, in my opinion, which makes me very motherfucking worried for Dustin. Mind you, with everything I'm analyzing about Dustin, I'm getting very nervous, and I'm going to talk about this and a lot of other theories coming out soon, but I'm getting very nervous for this character. But other than that, whoever did it, get your face eaten by a Demogorgon and go get yourself trapped in the Upside Down. That's all I got to say about that. Let's keep going. Because as I'm going to calm down now, all right, we get this scene of Max and Lucas, all right? We get this scene, and we have gotten this scene in a previous trailer from Tadum. However, if you have seen that trailer breakdown that I did from the Tadum trailer, all right? In that scene, I did not mention anything too crazy other than the fact, okay, we see the picture on the wall, we see the cassette and with the radio, all right? That's not too crazy. But I did mention that there seemed to be like a red eerie glow, like an eeriness to that image from that. But in this one, people, there is not that. In my opinion, there is no eeriness to this. This just looks like a sad scene. This looks like a meaningful scene here, people. So if we connect both of those trailers, all right, the Tadum trailer and this one, and both of those scenes, I have a feeling that this trailer, our season 5 trailer, that this scene is probably before what we saw in Tadum, if that makes sense. So like I said, it seems calm, it just seems sad. We get clips of Lucas holding Max's hand. The time is 2:12, which I don't understand if that has any importance at all. And then we get a quick clip of Lucas crying, okay? So this seems like a sad scene, right? But if what we saw from Tadum comes after this, where that red glow starts to come into this scene, do you think that we're seeing Lucas being sad, and then possibly that we could probably be getting a hint of where Max is at? More specifically, maybe that red glow is going to start coming in and we're going to see a different side or a vision of something, and maybe it could be something involving Max. Just let me know your thoughts. It's just a theory, Jonathan's, but let's keep going. Because these next scenes, all right, as we see these, what it looks like scientists burning, okay, they're with the flamethrowers, and then we see them burning what looks like that gate at the center of the city of Hawkins. But if you're paying attention and you look at where they're burning, does it not look like where the gate should be is not burning? It kind of looks like there's just a circle going around of that flame, like something is just blocking it, you know, like it has a shield in a sense. But this scene also connects with what I just said, that do you guys think that there could be a lab based here, okay? And that's what the military are protecting as well, because as we see in this show, the scientists are the ones that commence the burns. And we see those scientists in these same outfits earlier on in this show. So no doubt in my mind, there's some scientists involved with this military at the city center. So do you think this is kind of the location of the new Hawkins lab in a sense? Because as we keep going, we get this amazing and beautiful shot of Hopper and Joyce, okay? And they are in the cabin, all right? So we're going to be seeing the cabin again. There's other hints of that throughout this trailer. But as we know, these Hopper and Joyce conversations sometimes do not lead in a good direction. More specifically, if we want to compare as we see in the end of season 3, okay, Hopper and Joyce have this amazing conversation where they're kind of arguing and then they kind of just open up to each other, and that's like when they really show feelings. More specifically, when Joyce shows her feelings towards Hopper for the first time, where she really opens up, okay? Because after, if we're talking about season 3, all right, what happens, people? We thought Hopper had died, all right? And we thought something bad had happened. So I don't know if that's going to connect here, but normally that kind of does if we're really involving that, all right? So let's just keep going, all right? Let me know your thoughts about that. Because this scene, people, oh shit. These next scenes of the back shot and then the forward shot of our group looking at the upside down version of Hawkins' lab. I am so excited to see what's going on here. I might be speaking too soon because according to some scenes later in this trailer, it kind of give me a little bad vibes, but whatever. But I am very excited for one specific thing, people, and that is not to see Dustin, Steve, or Nancy go back into the Upside Down. I am very excited to see what Jonathan has to think about the Upside Down. Because if you think about it, people, we have not seen Jonathan go into the Upside Down yet. All we saw was him pull out Nancy from the Upside Down in season 1. So I'm very, very, very curious to see what Jonathan has to think about the Upside Down, and to see for the first time where his brother was trapped in season 1, where they had to go and save him from. So please let me know your thoughts about that, and if you've ever really thought about that, because we've never seen Jonathan have to experience this, okay? And we've also never seen some other characters have to experience this, which I really hope we do have to see them go and see this. And not just Hawkins' lab, but the Upside Down as a whole. So let's keep going, people, because as we jump into our next 2 scenes, we get our hands together moment. That's what I'm going to call this, all right? We first see our group, all right? We see the boys, and it looks like they're kind of having a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, all right? But as we look at this scene, okay, we see Mike, Lucas, and Will all hands in already, but we see Dustin walking up, okay? So he's the last one to agree to whatever they are talking about here. And then as we see his hands go in and we get the hands together moment, okay, we look below. We see the Dungeons and Dragons pieces, the dice, and all that. But what looks like a map of Hawkins, or a partial map of Hawkins, okay? An actual real map, not a Dungeons Dungeons & Dragons campaign map. This is pictured right below their hands in what looks like a Dungeons & Dragons manual or notebook, okay? More specifically, maybe Mike's. So, is this a little hint that the plan that we are kind of seeing commencing throughout this whole trailer? We kind of get hints that there's like a big plan being like that they're about to be going and doing. So, do you guys think that this is going to be an earlier on scene, okay? And Dustin's a little uneasy at this point because he's the last one to come in. But do you guys think that this is how they're going to plan this, okay? They're going to strategically plan this like a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, which makes a lot of sense to this show. We've seen them reference and handle the monsters or the things that they've had to come up against referring to Dungeons & Dragons. They've referenced it, they use the manuals to talking about the Mind Flayer and all that shit. But we've never truly seen them execute the entire start to finish plan as a Dungeons & Dragons campaign. So this scene gives me vibes of that. This scene gives me earlier on vibes, earlier on in the season, I specifically mean. More or less because Dustin's a little uneasy, alright? And we know what Dustin had to deal with, people, okay? Will dealt with a lot, and he's already up in there, okay? Lucas just dealt with a lot, being involved with Max, alright? And he's in there. Mike kind of was gone all last season and like trying to look for 11, but he thought he was going to lose the love of his life at one point within that, okay? So they've all dealt with that. They got some shared trauma. That's a little hint. But my initial thought, okay, maybe something involving this plan or something that they have to do to execute this plan is a little uneasy or a little unsafe by the eyes of Dustin. And as we know, at the end of season 4, Dustin just held Eddie in his arms as he died, and he watched him die, okay? So he had some kind of different types of trauma, all right? More specifically, Lucas is the only one that had very similar trauma, okay? Very, very close trauma to that, okay? But Max did survive. No doubt in my mind, there's going to be a big, big risk involving this plan. There's got to be. And based off how Dustin is in this, no doubt in my mind, there's going to be a big, big risk. So let me know your thoughts. Because as we jump to this next scene, people, okay, this is when we get the Mike and Elle moment. And it's very similar to what I just said about at the end of season 4. That's kind of when we saw Mike kind of have to deal with that shared trauma. When 11 was fighting Vecna, okay, Mike had to do that whole I love you moment and get her out of that mindset, okay, with his voice. He thought he was about to lose her, okay? So we see this similar again. We see them talking. We have this private conversation going on here, and it looks like a lovey-dovey moment. But what do we see here, people? We see 11 in a wetsuit, okay? And if you look at what they're sitting on, that looks like a bathtub to me, a homemade bathtub. Or should we say, a homemade Nina project, okay? That maybe 11 is going to be trying to do what she did in the Nina project, but from actual memory and thought. Not necessarily from VHS tapes that we saw the military rush in at the end of the Nina project, and most likely they have all of those VHS tapes in proof. So 11 might truly have to try and remember on her own accord, and we know she has trouble with memory, but if she can connect to somebody that she might have seen or remember she has seen, maybe she can connect directly that way. But as we see this, no doubt in my mind, that's what that is. That looks like a homemade bathtub, okay, or a homemade Nina project. And the wetsuit, no doubt in my mind, confirms that's what it is. And if you really want to hint at something else, okay, what's interesting in something that happens involving this cabin, involving memory, what we see at the end of season 4 specifically is 11 trying to find Max, okay? And one of those memories is that memory of Max showing the comic books, and that is of Wonder Woman and the Green Lantern. Well, if we look at the colors of 11's wetsuit here, what do they resemble the colors of? They kind of resemble the colors of Wonder Woman. So, does that mean that we could have a comparison to something else involving Max and the Green Lantern, okay? Some character that really was just a normal human being at one point in time. The Green Lantern came across something or was gifted power, okay? Was given power that he originally did not have. I don't know a lot about the Green Lantern, so don't mark my words, but I know for a fact that the Green Lantern, at least from the Ryan Reynolds version of that movie, he was gifted that power. He was given that ring, okay, that gave him these powers and made him the Green Lantern. So, at the end of season 4, what do we see, people? And we see that Max survived, but how does that happen? We know it in the show as a miracle, but we see something happen, all right? We see 11 put her hand on Max's chest, and then all of a sudden, Max miraculously survives. So, do you guys think that 11, in a way, I don't know how this would be possible, but in a way, being in that voided space and her doing doing that, maybe she might have transferred some of her power to Max. And as we know, Max is somewhere, okay? Max is somewhere in a mindset within the void. So if Max has now obtained somewhat of a power, or something that 11 might have been able to do, for all we know, and now she's trapped in this mindset, we don't know what that could end up doing. It's just a thought, but if you look real deeply and compare to things that happen involving 11, her memories, this cabin, Max, and all of this shit, it all connects, people. So as we get to this next scene, this is the only commentary I'm going to talk about here, and this is what Jonathan says, and he says, it ties us together forever. And no doubt in my mind, that's a strong hint that Jonathan might have to do something involved with something, and Nancy might not truly agree with, but she knows has to happen. And I have major thoughts about this scene, which is why I don't want to talk about this too deeply in this trailer breakdown. We are going to do a whole nother theory about this. Because if you watch the other theories, you know I have had weird hints about Jonathan and his involvement, and that certain times it seems like Jonathan knows shit, but then he doesn't know shit. And I've also had those hints about Hopper, but there's something I'm going to hint at right here, and we're going to talk about it. But there's a lot of people that sometimes in this show, they seem like they are in the loop, and then that there's some characters that seem like they are out of the loop. So if you know what I'm talking about based off that little word usage there, just let me know your thoughts, but we're going to talk about something involving that. I thought a lot about this, and it makes a lot of sense involving who could be out of the loop and in the loop. If you know what I'm talking about, let me know your thoughts. Because as we jump to this next scene, people, okay, this is Elle with this bandana where she's putting that up over her mouth. And where do we see that happen, people? We see that happen in the tunnels, all right? So no doubt in my mind, we are going to revisit these tunnels. There's another clip that happens, all right? But no doubt in my mind, we're going to revisit the tunnels, and more specifically 11 looks like she is going to be revisiting these tunnels. And if I have to pinpoint a location of where she is going to be revisiting these tunnels, no doubt in my mind, it could either be where we saw Hopper see where those holes or those tunnels led to, maybe that mother gate. But more specifically, I think there's another place that has raised a lot of suspicion in this show from season 2 and onward. And that being the Boneyard, people. The place more specifically where Will led those scientists to their death as he trapped them when he was the spy. So, no doubt in my mind, this, if 11 is looking like she looks very determined and right before she puts that stuff over her face, but no doubt in my mind, this gives me Boneyard vibes that maybe she's going to that place that the spy didn't want them to see, but realistically ended up being a place that was just a trap. Who actually knows? Let me know your thoughts. Let's get to the next clip. Because this next clip I also have a lot of thoughts about, and I want to talk about it in a completely another theory, and this is the tree jump scene. And no doubt in my mind, this is young Will. A lot of people have other thoughts about who this could be, but my initial thought, and the reason I want to talk about this in another theory, is that I don't see this as a tree jump, okay? I don't realistically, they make it look like that, okay? Like the Demogorgon's reaching for Will, and he's jumping from tree to tree. But I do not think that's what's happening here, people. I think this could be the moment that we see when Will actually went into the upside down. Because if we think about it deeply, all right, what else was there, people? The Demogorgon was there when Will vanished, but then all of a sudden it was not, just like Will. So if they both teleported or got put into somewhere, kind of like we see what happens with Henry Creel involving 11, I talked about that in another theory, all right? But what do we see in that scene? We see Henry Creel falling, all right? So no doubt in my mind, that's what we're seeing here, is maybe the moment Will got put into the upside down. And more specifically, him falling from the abyss or wherever the hell he just came from, and falling. And that Demogorgon might have done the same thing too, and it's got itself stuck up in a tree and it's trying to reach for him. So let me know your thoughts, but no doubt in my mind, this gives hints that we are going to finally fucking see Will in the upside down and what actually happened, people. So let me know your thoughts. I'm going crazy. Because as we get to this next scene, people, all right, this is our first on-screen appearance, from what I'm thinking, of Linda Hamilton. So my question to you, we're not going to talk too much about this, but what do you think Linda Hamilton's character is going to be? What do you think her involvement is going to be? Do you think it's going to be with the military? Do you think it's going to be something separate, like a secret spy agency? Do you think it's going to be with Owens? Do you guys think it's going to be something involving Papa? Okay, so maybe somebody that Papa was involved with specifically. But more importantly, do you guys think that Linda Hamilton's character is going to be placed in trying to hunt down 11. Do you think that's her purpose? That's kind of the vibe I'm getting, all right? She kind of looks like she's got military with her, but these military guys look different. It's just a theory, Jonathan's, like I will always say, so let's keep going. Because as we get to this next scene, it's a Hopper and Elle, and they look a little bit confused, like they're looking at something they have never seen before. They're very, very confused to see. And then all of a sudden, we get the clip, for the same type of clip that we got from Tadam with this big, mysterious wall-looking thing. And everybody, all of these Stranger Things fans all over the world has different thoughts about what this wall could be. In my opinion, I'm really just thinking this is the Mother Gate, or at least the bottom of the Mother Gate wall. Because if you think about it, where we saw 11 close that gate, okay, 11 and Hopper, they're in that elevator in season 2 more specifically. When she closes that gate, they don't go all the way down to close that gate. But when Hopper's shown those tunnels, okay, the end of the tunnels where they're all leading to that gate or whatever, when Hopper gets shown that by Owens, okay, they go all the way down, okay, they go all the way to a level flat surface where they get out and they start walking around. So we saw that wall, but maybe something involving that wall and that gate is being affected in a huge, huge way now that something happened at the end of season 4, if we want to connect that specifically. It's just a theory, Jonathan, okay, but this next one, all right, this next clip, all right, I have a lot of thoughts about, and I'm very, very confused because we see this as Nancy. That's obviously Nancy, okay? But I am getting very confused. I keep looking at this next human being, which a lot of people just think it's Jonathan, okay? But I keep looking at it, and I keep getting this thought that it does not look like Jonathan to me. To me, I don't know what to think of this, but this looks like Steve to me, all right? I don't know if I'm off by that. I know I sound crazy if you really are thinking this is Jonathan, but it looks like Nancy and Steve to me. So let me know your thoughts about that, but more importantly, what they are looking at or what they are witnessing, okay? This is one of the options that made it to the final round in the poll, okay? But no doubt in my mind, I have thoughts that this is the Mind Flayer, okay? What we're seeing here is the actual Mind Flayer, all right? If you look close enough, all right, this kind of looks like it's outside of Hawkins' lab. And the only reason I say that is because if you look on the left side of this image, all right, it slightly looks like you can kind of see a building behind what that big shit is, all right? But there's something that compares to this, okay, what this kind of looks like to me, and that is what happens to the laser in season 3 when it gets blown up. What do we see happen? It kind of blows up in a fiery cloud, but it also blows up with a lot of electricity and what looks like lightning, okay? So no doubt in my mind, maybe there's a reason why we saw that laser blow up, especially we've seen it, I believe, 2 separate times explode. The once at the very beginning and then once at the end when Joyce has to make it forcefully do that. But when we see that happen, okay, it blows up and then it blows out electricity and shit like lightning. So if we're thinking logically, okay, could that be something that this bigger plan, something entailing this bigger plan that they are doing, why they're in the upside down, okay, at Hawkins' lab? Because if you really look at it, people, it looks like they just did something to the Mind Flayer in order to possibly destroy it, all right? And may do what that laser did, but actually to the Mind Flayer. Something that has the capability of opening gates and also locking gates. So think about that, people. Because this next scene with Dustin looking with the binoculars and Steve in the car, okay, no doubt in my mind we've had behind the scenes photos of Steve, Nancy, Jonathan, and Dustin all in a car. And from what it looks like later in this trailer, we see a plan commencing. Specifically a plan commencing, possibly involving this, okay, what they are doing. And we see that they were just in the upside down. But there's another scene that connects to this, so we'll go back and we'll talk about that. But the next scene, okay, this scene, all right, is going to be epic, people. This next scene, this Jurassic Park style scene, no doubt in my mind, it blew my mind, okay, when we started seeing this. First and foremost, we see the Demodogs again, okay? We see the Demodogs and they are in what looks kind of maybe like the basement of the hospital or like a storage unit, something. I have no idea. But then we get this clip of Lucas and Max, okay, and Max is still passed out, all right? So just keep that in mind that Max is asleep in this moment. moment. But then we have somebody else here, and a lot of people think this is Vicky, but in my opinion, maybe this is Vicky, or maybe this could be Max's mom as well. I'm not too sure about that. I initially thought it was Vicky, but then I started thinking, okay, Max's mom has the same color hair, kind of. So it's just a theory, Jonathan, so let me know your thoughts, but let's just keep going, okay? Because as we move on to this next scene, we've gotten this before with this 11 scream, okay, with Hopper and 11, and this is a moment where it reminds me of when we saw Kali get into 11's head. In season 2, in the Lost Sister episode, the most irrelevant episode to the show that everyone still thinks, which no doubt in my mind, Kali has to have some more importance to the show one way or another. But if we truly think about that scene, okay, that's when we see that Kali has the capability of making you be able to see an actual physical human, and it made 11 kind of forget for a moment that Kali makes you see whatever she wants you to see, and 11 really was getting into her head in that moment, and we see her say that. We see her remind herself that it's not real, and then all of a sudden she starts screaming, "Get out of my head, get out of my head." So no doubt in my mind, when we see her do that, this reminds me of that. And I mentioned that in the trailer breakdown from Tadum. But no doubt in my mind, that connects to this. So if we're thinking, if we have to see a connection to Kali, like I truly think we do, maybe that she's going to have some involvement with this. Who actually knows, because we kind of see Vecna do that too. But the first time we saw that was with Kali. Because as we get to this next scene, alright, as I just mentioned, when we see Linda Hamilton, we see her with those soldiers, alright, but they look a little bit different. And then we get this scene of these style of soldiers, alright, shooting, okay, because then the next clip is Hopper shielding 11, alright, like a body shield. Basically, Hopper's behind a wall and we see these bullets flying through. And like I said in trailers, we do not know if these scenes connect, but in this moment, I truly think those two scenes connect. However, that's why I said earlier, what do you think Linda Hamilton's purpose is going to be, okay? Do you think she is out hunting 11? Because as we see these soldiers who look like they were just with Linda Hamilton, okay, they kind of look like hunters more than soldiers. But let's keep going with our next clip, people. So this is the scene that I'm thinking connects directly with what we just saw with Dustin and Steve. In that scene, it looked like Dustin was waiting for a signal. Because as we see that, okay, the next scene is super, super fast, but there's proof of something here. The next scene, we see this car driving into a gate, okay? No doubt in my mind. So what gate do you guys think this is? Do you think this is the actual gate at the center city of Hawkins? Or do you guys think this is another gate that they might have discovered that the military do not know about specifically? Who actually knows? But what I need you to realize, okay, is take a look real quickly, and you're going to have to watch this real fast. It's really hard to see, but I want to give a shout out to a channel that I am a member of and that I've been watching for a very, very long time. His name is I Like Scary, okay? His name is Brandon. We got the same name, all right? But he is the homie, all right? I am a member on his channel, and I view all of his live streams that he does Stranger Things live streams, and he talks about horror stuff. But he did a live stream kind of talking about the trailer breakdown, all right? And we were all talking with his subscribers and everything, and he mentioned something. He said he caught something, and I did not see this, and it blew my mind, and you guys probably saw this too. But if you look real quickly, okay, as this car is driving into this gate, okay, you can see Steve's side mirror, all right? And you can kind of see Steve's reflection, right? But as it happens real quickly and as this scene goes on, you see that mirror smash, okay? And it goes away because you don't see Steve's reflection anymore. So he noticed that right away. And the reason I wanted to give him a shout out is because he noticed that part. But it got me thinking about that, okay? Because that's kind of proves a little something here. That would prove a little bit that this gate is in the process of closing as they're doing this, okay? More specifically, that they might be driving into and trying to time this shit out so they maybe trap this car into the upside down for any reason. And I don't understand why they would need to do that. That's something we're probably going to learn about. But the point is it look with that mirror smashing, okay, that means it might be getting tighter and they might be driving into something that's closing. So this brain blasted me. So go give him a subscribe. Go check out his channel. All right. He is the homie and he knows that he always shouts out our channel on his streams to his family and his subscribers. There's some of you guys in here. Go check him out and go give him a subscribe. Because as we continue, all right, we get our Joyce axe scene, which we saw in the Tadum teaser, all right, but now we see what was about to come in, people. We see that it ends up being a Demogorgon, people, but there's something specific I want you to realize, okay, is Steve is not in this scene, but if you look look in the background, there is that radio van, okay? You could barely see it. It's super fast. But to me, if you look at that Demogorgon, people, okay, that Demogorgon, all right, at the end of season 4 specifically, real quickly, that Demogorgon was not burned correctly, all right? We get some hints that that Demogorgon was from America, okay, because Dimitri tells Hopper that at one point. That he heard rumors of a monster that they brought from America, okay? But that Demogorgon was not burned, correct? Or at least not burned before Murray burnt it to a crisp and it was still alive with the flamethrower, okay? But our Demogorgon at the end of season 1, okay, was burnt to a crisp. And we do not see it again. We just see that 11 banished it somewhere, correct? So, if you look at this Demogorgon, all right, this Demogorgon is burnt to a crisp, people, if you look at it close enough. This Demogorgon has burn marks and looks very, very injured. So, I'm going to ask you this. Do you guys think that this could be the Demogorgon from season 1, which everyone thought was the one in season 4? But I have always had this thought that that Demogorgon in Russia was just acted different, okay? And obviously it was being held captive and shit. But it acted a lot different than the one in season 1. That one in season 1 was very interesting to me, and I want to analyze that Demogorgon a lot. I have a lot of thoughts about that. But I want to know your thoughts about that. Let's keep going. It's just a theory, Jonathan, and next clip. Because this is a big one, people. This is when Will passes out. So the only thing I really want to ask you is, what do you think happens to Will here? We see that it looks like they are in the radio station bunker or whatever, okay, and then Will all of a sudden passes out. But, like I said, when we see those scenes, okay, at the very beginning of this trailer, all right, and we see Will, he looks very lost, okay, like maybe something is affecting him. So, we don't know this logically, okay, but in my opinion, if we're trying to connect the fact, okay, that maybe Will was lost, or maybe something was infiltrating Will's mind at one point in time, but we also get those lights blinking, so we usually see that as something is coming, or something located, something, okay, so I don't know if that's has any importance. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think Will passes out for? Why do you think this happens? Because no doubt in my mind, we see a little bit of a hint of that in the Tatum trailer, that he is passed out and Joyce is holding him. When Mike is holding back those kids, Joyce is right behind him holding a passed out Will. So how long is he going to be passed out for, people? Because we see that boy and he bashes his head on the ground at the end of that pass out scene. He looks like he's about to bash his head on a concrete ground. So just keep that in mind, that he might get seriously injured from that actually happening. Because as we get to this next scene, people, okay, I have a thought that these scenes are not connected, all right? And that's why this is a throw off in a sense. Because the first scene we see, all right, we see a shotgun loaded and then we see Nancy picking it up and Jonathan's right next to her. But what does it look like? It looks like they're inside, right? Or at least it looks like they're maybe in the upside down slightly, because it kind of has this bluish glow, but then it clips real quickly and it clips to somebody shooting at a Demogorgon that's jumping on top of the Bradley's Big Buy truck. And we even see the shotgun holes, okay, on the side of the truck. So it kind of makes us think that these are the same scenes or connected. But if you really think about it, okay, how the Nancy scene looks with the shotgun and then how this Demogorgon looks, they look like different scenes, and it really looks like Nancy and Jonathan are inside somewhere. But like I said, it's just a theory, Jonathan. Let's keep going, people. Because this next scene is going to hit. This is raising so many questions in the Stranger Things world, and this is what Karen and Holly are doing. No doubt in my mind, they are hiding from something within this scene, possibly in a bathtub, okay, more or less. I know it's clear, but realistically, that's how they would have to film a shot. But I'm really truly thinking that if they're hiding somewhere, specifically in a bathroom, okay, in their house, okay, that means something is infiltrating these houses now. Maybe the Demodogs or the Demogorgons. And as you know in my recent video, okay, we're going to talk about that. It's completely separate about the ring, all right? That's coming up. But as you know in my recent video, okay, I have a lot of thoughts about what these things could connect. So in the closer look video, we are going to break that down a lot more thoroughly. And I have a lot of things that connect to other things in this show that might prove my point about that, people. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, the Will Byers Has Vanished video, okay, that I came out with 2 days ago, go check that one out, all right? This next scene looks interesting, okay? And once again, this could be a trick, all right, where we're seeing Robin do something, but then the next scene, it might not necessarily connect to that, okay? But this one looks more like it connects. Because what I mean by that, all right, we see look at the Robin looking up like something big is happening, right? And we see like the grass on the ground and all that, and it kind of looks similar to what we should see in this next scene. More specifically, what it looks like the Mind Flayer is spiraling, okay, around that radio tower. And do you guys think that this is a bad thing or a good thing? Do you guys think this is a good thing, necessarily meaning that this is a part of their plan and they're trying to do this specifically? Or do you guys think that this is a bad thing, like the Mind Flayer is coming and stopping something from what they're trying to do? Maybe that radio signal that they're possibly going to be using a lot in this season. So let me know your thoughts, but like I said, these two scenes look like they connect a little bit more than the shotgun scene that we just saw with the Demogorgon, okay? So keep that in mind. Because like I just said, okay, we're going to talk more about this scene, but this is the iconic scene in this trailer that is causing so much suspicion about who done it, all right, or who is it. Because this next scene is the Nancy bloody hand scene, okay, and it's raising lots of suspicions, like I said, because she has a ring on her finger, okay? Well, real quickly, Nancy normally wears a ring on that finger. I'm going to point this out. She wears a butterfly ring on that finger that is gold, and she wears it on that finger for some reason. But if you look at this ring, people, and I talked about it in the theory from 2 days ago, the Will has buyers has vanished, so go check that one out. But if you look at this ring and you kind of enhance the brightness to it, all right, this is a wedding band, okay, not a woman's wedding band. Or even a teenager's butterfly ring. What you guys are seeing, okay, if you don't enhance this, all right, or enhance like the brightness to this, what you guys are seeing is the bright ring around her finger that looks like a thin ring, like the one she wears, okay? But if you brighten it up, you can see that it goes more down like this. I have one right here, all right? You see how it's thick, all right? But when you see it, all right, you're gonna see this ring on top. And that's what you guys are seeing in that picture. It looks like a thin ring, but this is actually a thicker ring that she has just like this. And that, my friends, looks like a gold wedding band, okay, from a man. And we know that, and there's proof of this, that Ted Wheeler wears a gold wedding band, okay? So no doubt in my mind, this, in my opinion, is going to connect a lot to maybe why we see Holly and Karen hiding. That's the bigger picture to my thought. I want to talk a little bit more about that, okay? But it's a little weird, and the only hint I'm giving you is that there's a lot of scenes involving Ted Wheeler where his left hand, where that ring would be on, is hidden out of shot for some weird reason. And there's another scene we're going to talk about involving the family and Ted Wheeler, all right? That it might specifically been a hint all the way back from season 1 involving this. But it's just a theory, Jonathan's. Like I keep saying, let's keep going, because the next scene, all right, what do we get? We get Will closing his eyes, all right? And this kind of looks to me like Will is he's focusing on something. I had this vibe that it kind of looks like Will is, you know, like something bad is happening, okay? Like this is a calm moment, but something bad is happening. But then I really looked at it, okay, and to me, it really looks like Will is like maybe his mindset is clear and like he is focusing on something specifically. Kind of like we see Eleven do when she tries to use her powers to find people and shit like that. So maybe this is one of those things. Maybe we will see Will really try to focus his mind in order to locate people, because we know it's possible now, people. You don't have to have superpowers to do this. We see Max do this in season 4, so don't forget that just because Will went into the Upside Down does not necessarily mean he is going to retain powers. As we see in season 4, we learn that any human being, okay, a normal human being without powers is capable of doing this, okay? And Max proves that to us, all right? She had a lot of trouble handling it, okay? But she was able to infiltrate and go back into her own mindset while it was trying to be taken from her. So, logically, if we see Eleven in her own place, like we kind of see her in this trailer, all right? She's out on her about, she's out and about. We don't see her a lot with our group, okay? But we do see her with Will. Maybe Eleven will help Will, okay, really try and focus his mindset and to kind of help him locate things or help the group while she is gone. But let me know your thoughts, because this next scene we are also going to talk about in another theory, alright? This Dustin and Steve hug. Okay, I just hinted at this in the video that I dropped, okay, on Sunday, involving the changing thumbnail. That's now Robin, and it's about a season 3, chapter 7, The Bite. But in that scene, okay, Robin basically says a weird line that we all die someday, my strange little child friend. It's just a matter of how and when. And in that video, okay, I connected the fact that we have this scene, all right, the Dustin and Steve hug, which I don't get good vibes from at all. Because we real quickly see Steve and he looks a little bit lost, but then all of a sudden we see Dustin hug him tight and he's crying, like he's sobbing. So I don't know if this is going to be like a bad moment. I'm really hoping this, but there's something I did not mention that I want to talk a little bit more openly in another video, why I think that this could possibly be a bad thing. But I'm not going to talk too much about that. Let me know your thoughts. It's just a theory, Jonathan. Let's keep going, all right? Because as we get to this next scene, it's Elle and Hopper, and they look ready for battle, okay? They look like they're looking at something, and they're just getting ready to go, and then all of a sudden it clips to Hopper, all right? And Hopper says his "let's end this kid" line, all right? But he's looking at someone with what it looks like a Nina Project tank on their head. And we cannot see their face, all right? So just keep that in mind. We cannot see their face in this shot of who Hopper is talking to. So I want to know your thoughts. Do you think this is the obvious choice, being 11? Or do you think this could be one of the other kids involving our original group, being Will, Lucas, Dustin, or specifically, in my opinion, Mike? The reason being is because we see Hopper a lot of the time call Mike kid. He addresses him as the kid, okay? So I started thinking, I'm like, why don't we see her face? Okay, it's a little odd, all right? And we don't know timestamps. All I realize is that he has a hat on that's an Alabama hat, all right, which is a little bit odd as well. But I did think about it that he calls Mike kid quite a lot, all right? And I think he calls Will kid a lot, but we see him call Mike kid a lot. He addresses him like that. So he also does to 11. That's why I feel like this could be a throw up, but there's a reason we don't see this face, unless they're just really trying to show us the meaning of what Hopper's saying. So let me know your thoughts. It's just a theory, Jonathan's. Because then our next scene is our thumbnail shot, and if you look close enough, Elle is wearing her wetsuit that we talked about earlier when we see her with Mike, possibly by that homemade Nina Project or bathtub. But what's the difference here, people? Okay, one, she does not have that tank like we just talked about, okay, which is why I'm calling it the homemade Nina Project. But she also has just 2 single things on her head, okay, just 2 single little nerve dials, or like temple dials, right, for her brain activity. She does not have a whole head of them like we normally see when they are analyzing or scanning for brain waves when they're doing this shit, okay, involving Will, involving number 10, involving Henry Creel, involving all of these kids. But in this one, okay, she only has these 2. So is there a reason, or maybe something that was being done wrong by Hawkins' lab, that for some reason, maybe our boy Dustin, because he's the smartest fucking one out of the bunch, but for any reason, maybe they figured out something that maybe they only need to connect to one specific point in the brain, being the specific point that connects to memory, people, okay? And I don't know if that's where it is, but could that be a thing? Because as we know, they have all these brainwaves, and if that's what they're doing in the Nina Project when she puts that tank on, okay, it could be scanning too much of the brain. Because logically, people, if we think about it, we know memory is going to have a big role in this. And we know that 11 is going to have to probably be the one to do this more or less. So could that be what they're doing here, is that they're scanning and analyzing something involving that one specific point in the brain involving memory, and not the whole entire brain? Because this next scene blew my goddamn mind, people, alright? This Hopper grenade scene, alright? Where he goes and he's like, boom, alright? This scene, alright, other than the fact that this is one of the most badass moments I have ever seen in a trailer, in my opinion, especially involving this. This is just insane. It blew my mind. But one thing real quickly I noticed is 11 is still sitting there. She is not being shielded by gunfire anymore like we saw earlier, except that she is still passed out on the ground while Hopper is doing this. So no doubt in my mind, something happened to 11. She used a lot of power. There's a reason she is passed out. However, I said earlier I'm going to be giving another shout out way later, alright? And this is the point in time, and our shout out is to our A1 Day 1, our homie girl, Sarah Percival, okay? Sarah Percival, okay? If you would not have said this, what you told me the other day, alright? I would have never motherfucking knew this, okay? And trust me, you guys have called me the Hawkeye of Hawkins because of these theories in this, but this is something, no doubt in my mind, if I wouldn't have looked at this scene any closer, I would have never realized this. So you, my friend, you, Sarah Percival, you get a huge shout out for this. Because as we see Hopper throw these up, we get real quickly the explosion, okay? And we see kind of that it's those soldiers that were shooting at him, all right? However, okay, there is something that we see. If you pause this, and it's very hard to see, but if you pause this at one point in time, and I'll try and get it as clear as possible, but possibly where Hopper and Eleven are hiding behind in this scene, or at least when he throws these grenades over a wall, all right, is possibly a sign that is about that turnbow real estate. How I said the turnbow trap. Sarah Percival caught something that if you pause it, okay, and you look really closely, that is that like promo thing that we saw involving the turnbow real estate. I don't know where it went when we saw this, okay? But if you pause it, you can see the name Turnbow on there, and you can kind of see that it's that same thing that we have had behind the scenes photos of a long time ago, all right? So everyone, go W Sarah Percival in the comments and give her a huge shout out, all right? So because I would not have seen that, and that's phenomenal. Because I was thinking this was somewhere completely different, and it might still be, but no doubt in my mind, you are onto something that is totally a Turnbow real estate, say like billboard or something, or advertisement maybe on the side of the road or whatever. But no doubt in my mind, that is a place that we are going to see this battle go down between Hopper, these military guys, possibly Linda Hamilton soldiers, and then all of a sudden he's going to boom them to a crisp. Or should I say, bada boom, let's get to the next clip. Because these next scenes, all right, these are the ones that are going super fast, all right? Super fast, all right? But this next quick one, all right, real quick, is of Will. And a lot of people think this could be other people, but this next one looks like it's Will to me, okay? And it looks like he is being overtaken by vines. But I don't think these are just the vines, okay? Because there's something specific about these. Specifically, if you look at these, they have those little pincers, okay, all right? Those little points on them. And where do we see those, people? We see those types of vines, all right, involved in the Creel house, and those are the ones that go into Vecna's back, all right? So, I don't know what to think of this, all right? And I have a big assumption to put on you, all right? Because there's something we see at the very end of this trailer, right? And then we see this, and it's almost non-existent to this unless you pause it. But if we connect those tentacles, all right, the ones that go into Vecna's back, which are in the upside down, and now we kind of see a hint that it looks like Will is in agony. If this is Will, okay, I think it's Will, but if how we see, it looks like Will is in agony and being overtaken by that. So, do you guys think this is going to connect in a way that will connect to the end of this trailer, which we are going to talk about when we get to it? Okay, so that means, what does that mean, people? Next clip. Because the next shot is of Holly, okay? And it kind of looks to me like Holly is looking at something like something bad just happened, all right? That's all I'm going to say about that. Or it kind of looks like she's being cornered, all right? So just keep that in mind. Because as we get to the next clip, all right, it's actually of Lucas, all right? And this one looks like Lucas is very cornered to something. He's got blood on his shirt, and he's leaning on what, people? Because in my opinion, people, this looks like he's leaning on a kind of a big-ass rock. And where do we see a big-ass rock, people? That we see a big-ass rock in Season 4 being Skull Rock, all right? So, I don't know if I'm correct about this, but it looks like Lucas is leaning up against a rock and like he's being cornered to something. So, could be Lucas be dealing with something at Skull Rock for any reason? And as we saw earlier in this trailer, we see him carrying Max, and we see him trying to hide from Demodogs, but now we're seeing something involving him possibly being cornered, which looks like Skull Rock to me. So, is that possibly where they're trying to escape from? Because we know in Season 4 that they go to Skull Rock kind of like a hideout. That's where Eddie goes to hide out, because not a lot of people really know about it, but they kind of do, okay? All the teenagers would know about it. But it's kind of like a makeout point or a hangout spot. So, no doubt in my mind, it's kind of somewhere where the cops aren't really going to be going necessarily, like right off the bat. I don't know, it's just a theory, Jonathan, alright, but the next clip, real quickly, we get Murray and Robin, okay, and they're kind of looking like they are discovering something, if you think about it. They kind of have this look of realization, alright, and no doubt in my mind, we see that Bradley's Big Bike truck, and it kind of looks like the radio station in the back, so could they be looking at that radio tower, and could this be the moment that something's figured out, that the radio tower might work? It's just a theory, Jonathan, but my point is that we also see Murray, and I know there's been rumors of this and hints of this, and I think there might have been photos of this, but we see his name tag, and he is going to be known as Austin in this season, supposedly. Murray is going to kind of be an undercover agent from what I'm hearing, and his name is supposed to be Austin, alright? And supposedly he works at Bradley's Big Buy. That's a big hint to some spoilers or whatever. But like I said, we don't know if that's factual, okay? He's looking a little bit more like a Bradley's Big Buy, maybe semi-truck employee, alright? Which we also see in this show, mind you, in season 2, alright? 11 gets dropped off at Mama's from a semi-truck driver, which is very interesting if we're connecting all of things. But let's just keep going, okay? Because we get this next shot, alright? And this next shot, no doubt in my mind, is going to connect to that scene where they are driving into that gate, okay? This is probably what they were waiting for. In my opinion, they were waiting for a signal from Dustin in order to go drive into that gate. Because there's not a lot going on here. It's really quick, but we see Steve's car and it's zooming, alright? It's going fast and it looks like it's on its way to doing something. And as we just saw, it kind of looks like they are driving directly into a gate, people. So let me know your thoughts about that. Because then this next quick shot, okay, this is kind of proof to me that these soldiers may be different than the military that we're seeing that were in Hawkins at the city center. These soldiers look like they are hunters, okay? I mentioned that earlier, that they in this scene when they're running through the forest, like jumping around, no doubt in my mind, they give that thought that these are hunters, okay? Hunting somebody, more specifically maybe 11. But this scene, okay, raises suspicion to me, alright? And this is the scene where I think Nancy might discover something, and same with 11, and I don't really know what's going on here. But it's the scene when Nancy walks in with the shotgun and 11's right by her side with her hood up. Okay, so obviously 11's in hiding at this moment. But no doubt in my mind, this is inside of the Wheeler's house. And Nancy's got that gun ready and 11 looks like she's terrified, okay? So let me know your thoughts about what could be happening in this moment. But as I just said, we get that quick shot of Holly, like she kind of looks cornered, alright? So I don't know what's going on here, but could this be a connection here that maybe they're witnessing somebody cornering Holly or having Holly under hostage? Or are they witnessing something else, being something even worse? So let me know your thoughts. It's just a theory, Jonathan. I'm going to say that all the time now. Because after that shot, alright people, this is a quick one, and this is one that I have a big thought about, alright? This shot of the dial turning, alright? We see a hand of a person, alright? And in my opinion, this slightly looks like 11's hand, and it kind of looks like 11 when we saw her in season 4, like the flannel she was wearing. More specifically, when she was on her way to the Nina project, okay? So I don't know if this is maybe a part of a flashback to that by chance. But there's something interesting about this, okay? And if you look real quickly, she looks like she's turning this dial. And no doubt in my mind, that looks like a light dial, not like a radio dial like we see all this other shit going on. But if you look real quickly in the background, see that white space like it looks like a white room, okay? Well, where do we see a plain white room for the most part, people? We see a plain white room in the rainbow room. So I don't know if this is going to connect to a flashback, like I said, because those were in two different places, the Nina project and with Hawkins lab in the rainbow room. But this dial turn in that white room in the background, it gives me vibes that we might be seeing the real life Hawkins rainbow room once again as well. And more specifically, maybe with 11, if that is her hand, but let me know your thoughts about who this could be. But that's the first initial thought I got when looking at this, is that white space back there, we only get one scene and one place, more specifically of a plain white room for the most part. And yes, the rainbow room is not plain white, I get that, there's rainbows on the walls, but the majority of that room is just like white, okay? So let me know your thoughts. It's interesting, but there is a lot of talk about like the mysteriousness of the two-way glass within those rooms, okay? And this kind of looks like it's behind two-way glass, like in a control room. Or should I say what kind of something that Erica says, that she notices in season 3, how she notices the comms room where all the controls are at and all the buttons. But it's just a theory, Jonathan. Like I said again, okay, so the next one we are looking at is real quickly, all right? It's that eye scene, all right? And I want to know who you think this eye is. I have one person in mind, and I want to talk about this. I, in my opinion, okay, one, think that this could be Will's eye. I'm not too sure of that, but I really, truly think that this might be our one single hint of Mama. And why do I think that, people? Because I have to review again, and I will do another video on this, but I'm almost positive that we see a shot like that involving Mama, slightly involving Mama and 11. And also involving, like, the flashback scenes, okay? Like, something involving Mama's eye, all right? Don't mark my words on that, but I have this vibe. As soon as I saw this, all right, I just, for some reason, it made me think Mama. And if you think about it, we don't have any hints of her in this trailer at all. So, logically, we have no idea of this, but if this is, okay, then logically we would have one single hint, and that would be this eye, all right? So just let me know your thoughts. It's just a theory, Jonathan's. But as it goes from the eye, it goes into the tunnel. So it's kind of like showing us, like, things are being seen, or maybe things are being looked for. Because when we see that in season 2 involving Will, all right, when he's looking for shit, we get like kind of an eye scene, all right? And he's looking for shit. We see these eye scenes when things are trying to be located from a specific person, okay? And more specifically, when we see Will do it, we see those tunnels. We see him look through the tunnels, and we don't really see the eye thing in that scene. Now, correct me on that. I'm just correcting myself. I don't know what I'm talking about. But when Hopper and Joyce are trying to figure out, before Will's like fully infiltrated from what we see, all right? And he's all scared, and they're saying, and that's the scene when Joyce is like, what if you don't have to talk about it? What if you can draw it? When he's talking about that, and Hopper's asking him about the now memories, okay? Like, everything's happening all now, all at once. When he tells him about that, he's telling him about those memories, and then we see flashes of the tunnels. So, I don't know if that has any importance, but right here, we kind of see that same shit. And then from what it looks like, okay, it looks like people are running through the tunnels, and people are saying that it's like Erica, Lucas, and Mike, I think, or Erica, Lucas, and Will. I don't know. But this is the scene where people are getting a lot of hints that something involving Erica means that she's a goner. I don't get it. Let me know if you guys heard about that, though. But this little shot right here is something involving this, like people are connecting to something, and I don't get it. But as we get to the next scene, all right, we get this next quick shot of Erica with the syringe. And we know these syringes, all right? There's a couple different syringes we have seen in this, involving some drugs or whatever. But in season 2, another season 2 reference, all right, we get a syringe that Max specifically uses. I'll use that scene, all right? When Max uses the syringe on Billy. Throughout the whole scenario, they are using that syringe that she uses on Billy. They are using those on Will. For what, people? To keep him asleep. And more specifically, why? So the Mind Flayer cannot locate him, okay? Locate somebody that it wants. So, as we see in this show, all right, and as we saw at the end of season 4, and as we know in this trailer, all right, we have one specific character that kind of resembles how Will was in that season, people. And that is our girl Max, all right? So, do you guys think, all right, that we are going to have to maybe see Max have to stay asleep? And more specifically, so the Mind Flayer or Vecna or whoever cannot find her body. Because as we know from what Vecna tried to do to Max, he tried to basically kill her, okay? And her body probably would have been under the ground if he was successful. So I don't know if that has any importance about that. And I just kind of thought about that. Is there a reason that maybe something involving burying these bodies, okay? Because as we now know, okay, we get a hint of that involving Eddie's grave. We know that Billy involving Max in the Billy episode, Billy is under the ground in a grave. I'm assuming that Chrissy, Fred, and Patrick are all probably in graves, okay? So, and as we know, there's talks about zombie shit, okay, in this, like how to beat the Mind Flayer. But I'm getting sidetracked with that, okay? But my point is that in season 2, involving the whole spy activity and involving the Mind Flayer, we know that they figure out that if they keep Will asleep, they can't be located. So, is that going to be a thing involving Max and why we see her asleep still? And could that be a reason of why how we're going to see Max in real life Hawkins? But then we should get a lot of storyline involving Max while she's trapped in this mindset. Kind of like what we didn't see involving Will in season 1 when he vanished. Hopefully we get that as Max's storyline, okay? Maybe it's like she's fighting with herself in her mind. She's trying to get out of the void. But the Mind Flayer seems to be back in this season, okay? Mind Flayer, Vecna, Demodogs, everything, okay? The Demogorgon. But as we saw in that season, like I said, they needed to keep Will asleep so they couldn't be located. So do you think that that's what this is connecting to? Because we got Erica, and we know Erica is connected to Lucas, who is connected to Max. So there's connection here. But as we continue, Jonathans, let's get to our next scene. Because this next scene, alright, is absolutely insane. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought of a Mushroom Theory Part 3. If you do not know what I'm talking about, I started this channel with a theory called Stranger Things is a Mushroom. And basically that was made off of a prop from another YouTuber, okay? His name's Tate100T, go check him out as well. But in his video, he went to Hawkins High School, okay? It was like a few days or maybe like a week before they tore the high school down. And basically he went inside the high school and he kind of just filmed around, all right? For like a last time seeing the high school. And what I noticed in that video is he went in the lunchroom, okay, the cafeteria, and there was this prop mushroom of a fly agaric mushroom. It's like a fairy tale mushroom. And I was thinking, I was like, why would this be in there? And it definitely looks like a prop, okay? It definitely doesn't look like someone just brought that in there and just left it there. So I was thinking, I was like, if this is associated with Stranger Things, then no doubt in my mind, this has something to do with Stranger Things, and maybe I could research this. And that's what that Stranger Things theory was all about. But this scene made me think of a connection to a possible Mushroom Theory Part 3, specifically involving 11 and what we see her do here, okay? And it's gonna sound crazy, so we'll talk about it in another theory, but this next scene is absolutely insane. What we see here, people, is that 11 apparently has more abilities than we ever thought she can do. Basically, what we see her do here is she basically Super Mario jumps over that bus that we know from the junkyard, okay? So no doubt in my mind, we're gonna see some enhancement of a lot of different things, okay? It's especially involving 11 here. So if we want to connect some things, we're gonna talk about it in a Mushroom Theory Part 3, but like I said, your little bit of a hint right there is that she kinda Super Mario jumps, alright? And we have arcade references all throughout this show, so that's all you're getting from me. But let me know your thoughts. Like I said, it's just a theory, Jonathans, because our next shot, alright, is a little bit confusing, alright? Or at least everyone was probably a little confused because they were all making assumptions about what the hell was about to be coming out from under the ground, okay? And I want you guys to no liars in the comments, alright? No liars. Be honest with yourself and be honest with me. Who the hell thought it was going to be a dragon coming out of this bitch, alright? Because all we get coming out of the ground is a Demogorgon, people, and no doubt in my mind it was going to be a Demogorgon, and I did not talk about this in my trailer breakdown for a specific reason. I said in there, I put a little hint that we will talk about that scene in another theory, which we never talked about yet, because I did not really truly believe that that's what we were going to see. And I'm being truthful with you right now, but are you guys going to be truthful in the comments? So no little liars in there, alright? Friends don't lie, remember that, but who thought it was going to be a dragon? Just be honest. Because as we come to our closing scenes, alright, I know this was probably a long one, I have no idea how long this was. So as we get to our closing clips, people, okay, this is where things get interesting, okay, because after we see the Demogorgon coming out, I don't know if these scenes are going to connect necessarily, but we see a shot of Joyce, and obviously someone is laying on the ground right next to her, okay, and it does not look like it's a good scene, okay, this looks like a bad scene to me, alright, but then all of a sudden Joyce is looking like something is coming, and then we get a shot of Mike, and this connects to that shot we've seen before of where he's holding those kids back, possibly. But Mike is also looking up at something, and they both look like they're looking up, alright? But then all of a sudden, we get this shot, okay, of what looks like Vecna coming out from what looks like kind of just this shell, or like, you know, this like sticky shit, or whatever, like the gates, alright? But there's something I connected here, okay? Because as we see this shot, alright, if you really connect what this shot looks like, alright, this connects to a shot that looks like the first Shadow origin story, alright? And more specifically, specifically some artwork that they have used involving that play, okay? They use an artwork piece and it looks like a silhouette of Vecna, okay, behind a red, like, background, all right? So more specifically, like, Vecna would be behind it. And what do we see, people, here? We see that red background, okay? And we see a silhouette of what looks like Vecna, except in this one, that shit is open and it's coming back. So, could this be a First Shadow origin story reference or a point in time where we see something involving that, alright? I don't know, but the artworks look very similar to me, so let me know your thoughts, and it's just theories, Jonathan, but as we get to this next one, alright? The big one. We get this closeout scene where it goes black, and if you listen closely, that's the only thing I'm going to talk about the sound, but if you listen closely, it sounds like a bomb is beeping and about to go off. Just keep that in mind. A bomb. It's like beep, 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 and it tones out. And then all of a sudden, after that beeping stops, it closes for a second, and we get our Vecna voice being, "Found you." And right after that, people, you know what we see. We see this next level style looking Vecna, okay? But there's something that you gotta keep in mind, once again, all right? Because as we analyze this last clip, and I hope you guys like this one, like I said, we're gonna do a closer look about specific scenes and about the narration involving those scenes as well. But the thing I noticed here, people, is as we see this enhanced Vecna and we see all this fire in the background, this to me looks like this Vecna is blocking that fire, okay? And we've seen something like this before, all right? At the end of season 2, once again, another season 2 reference, when 11 closes the gate from the Mind Flayer, okay? What we see is she's pushing that light. She's like pushing it back using like light or like white light, right? Sort of like a force field in a way, like a shield, and she's using that and she's pushing it back to close that gate. Well, what we see here, people, is we see that, except from what my eyes are showing me, it looks like this Vecna is doing that same thing. So, I don't know what to make of that. I'm not making any dumbass assumptions involving that, but do you guys think, this is a question, this is not an assumption, but do you guys think that is Henry Creel Vecna, or do you think that is someone else, what we're seeing right here? We obviously know that it looks different, okay? It looks way different, all right? But that connection right there is involved with 11, how it looks like a white light force fielding or pushing shit back. So, I don't know, I'm not calling it that's 11. That's why I'm asking you, do you guys think this could be somebody else? I mean, it's very well possible, because as we saw in the earlier when these quick shots started, we saw Will looking like he's being overtaken by something. So I have this thought that there's a lot of tricks being played in this trailer. As you can tell, there's a lot of things that I don't think match up to what we're seeing like back to back to back, which is how trailers usually work. But that's why I want to analyze the commentary and the narration differently and together, and we got to break this down a little bit differently. So this was just a brief all the way through, and this video is not brief whatsoever, but I hope you guys like this one, okay? But there's one thing I want to close this off with that I noticed. One thing, all right? One very important fucking thing. As Sarah Percival noticed within that big flame scene, okay, when Hopper throws the grenades, and if you get it right at that perfect moment, you can see that it says Turnbow on a sign, okay? That same thing kind of happens here, which blew my mind after Sarah told me that, because I saw this first, all right? And I noticed this like almost right away. But if you take your eyes off Vecna or whoever this could be, and you take your eyes off of whoever could be fighting against this right now, look right above his head and kind of look up to the top left of the screen or this image, all right, and look at what it says, all right? That word right there, just barely in sight and barely showing within this whole big scenario, this big battle, that looks like it says John to me, okay? And yeah, it's probably just something in the middle of Hawkins, maybe like a sign, okay, on a building that's referring to like a business or something. But if you think about symbolism, like we've been doing this whole entire time, how I just said, it's kind of like a sign that it says John on that sign. So like I said, I don't know what to think about that. It's a little odd that we see the close of this trailer and then all of a sudden we see it with this character, somebody possibly fighting, and then we see that name. So logically, if we're connecting what closes this story out, or at least this trailer, we see a Vecna, we see someone fighting we don't know, and then we see the name John. So let me know your thoughts, people. I hope you guys like this one. I hope the audio was amazing this time around. It should be fucking perfect. But with all that being said, with all the love I can give you, thank you for waiting. I know there was a lot to talk about here, and we're going to break it down more in a closer look. But thank you for supporting the channel like all of you have been doing. This family just keeps continuing to grow. You guys are growing it so fast. We're already almost at 1.5 thousand subs, and we only started this about 9 months ago. It's blowing my mind, so keep subscribing, liking, following this journey so I can keep blowing all of your minds. I love each and every single one of you. Keep subscribing, liking, following the journey like I just said, and you guys already know, we out.